All right, we're going to get started because, as a reminder, we are quite crunched for time. So we need to, Delegate Foley. So we are quite crunched for time because we have to stop at 3:55. So we're going to jump right into Maryland's Energy Landscape Part 2. We are joined by the Department of Human Services. Thanks for being here, and please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Guyton, members of the committee. My name is Webster Yee. I've got the privilege of serving as the Chief of Staff for the Maryland Department of Human Services. I'm joined by my two colleagues, Augustin Tagamani-Bagani-Amana, sorry if I screwed it up, are the Executive Director of our Family Investment Administration and all of our economic assistance programs, as well as by my colleague Rigel Moore, the Director of our Office of Home Energy Programs within the Family Investment Administration. Augustin and Rigel are part of our new leadership team at the Family Investment Administration. Augustin was confirmed as our Executive Director in late 2024. Rigel joined us as a Director in late 2025. Together, Augustin and Rigel have been instrumental in reshaping how we deliver home energy assistance to Marylanders across the state. We also appreciate the committee's the opportunity to brief the committee on our home energy work, and we're happy to take questions at the end or offline to help brief up this committee. I'll begin with a high-level overview of how home energy assistance, which we call OHAP, works, how they're funded, recent enrollment data, as well as our administrative structure. Then I'll share information on our program eligibility and recent changes made in the 2023 session, which have helped to expand access to energy assistance for those who are receiving other benefit programs known as categorical eligibility. Then I'll turn it over to Ms. Moore to highlight a few of our current initiatives and to discuss how DHS is approaching affordability and sustainability together. In addition, per the committee's request, we will share our assessment of some challenges related to utility affordability and our close partnership with the Energy Administration behind us, as well as some new and exciting initiatives like community solar that we look to having further conversations with this committee in the next 84 days. The Maryland Department of Human Services serves as the state's primary administrator of energy assistance programs for low-income households. We administer 4 core energy assistance programs that provide bill payment assistance and arrearage retirement to mitigate energy insecurity and prevent utility shutoffs. Broadly speaking, they're separated into 2 buckets: the Maryland Energy Assistance Program, MEAP, and gas arrearage retirement assistance. And think of that more in the heating, cooling, heating oil, coal, et cetera, side of the world. And that's primarily federally funded. And then the second bucket is Electric Universal Service Program, EUSP, with the Electric Arrearage Retirement Assistance Program, and that's funded more on the Maryland side through the CEF fund. And for a lot more information, here we go. The key part that I want to highlight here is with the federal low-income assistance program, and I believe that you all have hard copies, that is very much federally impacted. And so when President Trump first put his budget for last April and May, he proposed zeroing this program out entirely. The funding bill, the appropriations bill, is currently going through the Congress now. It has not been passed. It's under the Labor, Health, and Human Services budget, and it's located within the U.S. Department of Human Services. We're very closely monitoring the developments that are going on the Hill because, as you can see, it's a good chunk of change, and it would directly and very severely impact how we perform services for Marylanders, especially with heating in the middle of winter. During the federal shutdown, this was one of the areas that was severely impacted. We did not receive our federal fiscal year 26 funds until way later, approximately December. And so what the state did was we used carried over federal fiscal year 25 funds to fund and take care of arrearages in October. And then Governor Moore announced during the state of emergency a $10.1 million executive order where we used state funds from CEF to ensure that payments could still go forth. And the basic way of what happens is if, for example, I were to have a utility overage with Pepco or BG&E or whatever, then I could apply, and Ms. Moore, Director Moore will speak about that, at a later time, a little bit later in the presentation, the arrearage would be applied to my utility bill, not directly to me. And so this is why LIHEAP is so critical, because especially in the winter, this is where the help can most directly be applied towards heating assistance. On the electric side, it's through, as I mentioned earlier, the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, which is funded through the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative auction. And again, our colleagues with the Energy Administration will be following up with a lot more information on that. So I'm just going to mention that that's where the state funds come in, it's special funded. And go to the next slide, which shows the geographic impact. And again, if you look here, we've divided it up into regions. You've got the shore, the western counties, southern, and the central Maryland counties. And folks are spread out across the state. Everyone has some type of impact where jurisdictions are interested. This is over 100,000 households served. And we're actually serving more households now because of changes through categorical eligibility, as well as some other benefit changes that we've made for fiscal year 26. All right. And I talked about the federal fiscal funding implications. I will also mention that the continuing resolution in Congress is set to expire on January 30th. And so right now we've received a large bulk of our federal fiscal year 26 funds, but not all of it. And so that is an item of severe concern. In addition, as I'm sure the members of this committee are acutely aware, there are rising energy costs, aging housing stock, and limited access to energy efficiency upgrades that are challenges that the committee should be aware of. How is OHEB administered? It's a hybrid partnership with both our community action agencies, local governments, and the local departments of social services. And it depends very much on each jurisdiction. We at the state level provide the statewide leadership, administering both the federal side and the state side in terms of policy and eligibility guidance. We ensure fiscal integrity and compliance, and we also coordinate with the utility companies, the Maryland Public Service Commission, and federal partners. There are 20 local administering agencies, which are, and let me just switch to the next slide right here, which are responsible for accepting and processing the applications, determining household eligibility, issuing benefits and crisis assistance, and maintaining required case documentation, as well as conducting outreach to eligible households. Depending on the jurisdiction, the local administering agency may be the local department, or it may be a community-based partner. This structure has allowed us to be flexible and to ensure that each county's unique needs are met, while at the same time providing a consistent level of service, standards, and accountability. It's also important to note that under the previous administration, there had been talk of centralizing, getting rid of that partnership with the local administering agencies. And I'm here to say very clearly, and we've said this to our partners, under this administration, that is not the plan. That is not the case. We have taken no steps towards that. Our job is to support each of our community-based partners to ensure that they are able to take care of individual needs in the community. And in fact, our secretary over the past year or two has gone to each of these local administrating agencies, and our specific job hasn't been, okay, we're here to look for blame, we're here to help. And so if we go into a place and there's a room full of paper applications, it's how do we get scanners sent out? How do we support you, staff, and technical resources so that we can get these applications and Marylanders served as quickly as possible? And next up, I'll turn it over to Director Moore to talk more about OHEB benefits.
Thank you, Webster. It is great to be with you all today. My name is Elijah Moore, and I serve as the director of the Office of Home Energy Program. If you take a look to the chart in the PowerPoint, it shows all OHEB households who receive benefits in state fiscal year 24 to state fiscal year 25. It is important to note that we, as an OHEB program, we count the household and not the individual. And we also have a curing period. So if you look at the date, it extends through 9/30. This encompasses the 90-day curing period. So for instance, if a customer was to apply on the end of the state fiscal year, which is June 30th, they have a 90-day time frame to fix or cure their application. Due to the high energy burden experienced by low-income households, DHS's approach to affordability for the state fiscal year 26 emphasizes targeted needs energy assistance through the Office of Home and Energy programs. The OHAP benefits matrix for Maryland Energy Assistance Program and the Electric Universal Service Program is structured to provide the highest level of assistance to the households with the lowest incomes relative to household size, ensuring that limited resources are directed to those with the greatest energy burden. DHS recommends continuing this type of formula and prioritizing the vulnerable populations. The OHAP program currently has a vulnerable population waiver, which allows households with ages 2 or younger or 60 or older to get an additional arrearage grant within a 5-year period. And this really helps our most vulnerable customers do away with energy debit. In addition to this, we have the Critical Medical Needs Program, which is a fast-track program for our customers who have medical burden and critical illness. Essentially, they will be able to provide us with the proper documentation, like a medical waiver, in order for us to process them with an expedited time frame. And this is with the understanding of they need utilities to be restored in order to have life-saving services. DHS recognized that seniors, individuals with disabilities, people who are medical fragile, and households with young children may face affordability challenges even when they remain current on utility payments, and therefore could benefit from increased supplemental assistance to prevent future hardships and service disruption. In 2023, the Maryland General Assembly passed House Bill 323, Chapter 207, which created our categorical eligibility program. And this program is slated for anybody who already receives SNAP, TANF, TCA, means tested veteran assistance, to be automatically eligible and enrolled into the OHAP program without having to create an application just for the assistance. Categorical eligibility led to a 61% increase in applications from FY23 to FY24. In terms of enrollment, categorical eligibility meant that 90,544 more Marylanders received energy assistance from state fiscal year 2025 to state fiscal year 2023. DHS views affordability and sustainability as mutually reinforcing goals. Strategies such as community solar participation, expanded weatherization referrals, and data-driven eligibility matching reduces household energy burdens while lowering overall system demand. Integrating benefits across programs further stabilizes households, reducing reliance on repeated crisis interventions and promoting long-term energy resilience. In FY26, DHS is advancing through several initiatives designed to modernize service delivery. For example, DHS, we've revamped our OHAP application to make weatherization referrals to opt out, so everyone's automatically opted in, with the option to remove if they see fit. These referrals go to our Department of Housing and Community Development for energy efficiency measures. So if a customer has a large consumption on their energy bill, weatherization will get a referral, and they will go in and go to the house and assess for where there's air coming in, any type of insufficiencies within the home that's driving up the energy costs. They also do HVAC repairs and furnace repairs. We are also partnering with the Maryland Energy Administration to enroll households in A013 solar projects for free and reduced cost in FY27. We are currently piloting a 6-month pilot with the Community Solar Program, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, as mandated by House Bill 908 in 2003. All OHAP applicants within our 6 piloting jurisdictions will be able to receive up to a 20% credit on their energy bills. In addition to energy efficiency initiatives, OHAP has supported and participated in the Public Service Commission's work group for PC 59 low-income mechanism. And this mechanism provides a formula where utility credits are applied to income qualifying participants or households to reduce their energy burdens by 6%. The limited income mechanism credits will be applied to gas and electric customers and instead to roll out in FY27 as well. Announced July 2025, DHS implemented the Maryland One app, allowing households to apply for multiple DHS programs through one single streamlined platform. We've seen this be widely accepted amongst our constituency, especially with our vulnerable populations and our local administrating agencies who do on-the-ground outreach work. And lastly, this month, January 2026, we are piloting a data matching initiative that identifies categorical eligible households that have missing utility information with Promise's Match Learning AI system. So we plan to recruit more people who are eligible for benefits and who are not getting them due to missing needed information. And this will reduce processing delays, prevent benefit loss, and improve referral coordination across energy assistance programs to serve as many Marylanders as possible. And at this time, I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have. We want to thank you all for allowing us this opportunity to brief you on the work that we're doing here in the Office of Home and Energy Program. And with your continued support and partnership, we will continue to be steadfast in our mission to serving Maryland's most vulnerable households. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're obviously doing very critical work for the most vulnerable Marylanders. Any questions for DHS? Vice Chair Guyton.
Karen, thank you so much for being here with us today. Nice to see you, Webster. I do have a question. You talked about cost sharing somewhat with the federal administration and the state. Can you clarify the relative contributions of each? And it sounds like we're serving an awful lot of people now, which is wonderful, now that we're going towards categorical eligibility, especially if you automate and do the data sharing piece. If the federal government were to withdraw their support and not continue this, where would we be as a state?
As I mentioned, the federal funds are primarily funding more of the energy assistance for like home heating, for example. So the Maryland Energy Assistance Program is almost entirely federally funded. And that in state fiscal year 25, that amount was $82 million. So that's a massive chunk of change that's not going there. We've historically used on the electric side, C funds, and on the home heating side, the LIHEAP, the federal funds. And so if the federal funds go away, we're both statutorily limited on the electric side, and we would need to have a lot of rapid conversations with both this committee and the Appropriations Committee on how to make things work.
Just a follow-up, if I may. Thank you. Right now, as things stand with the funding in place, are we able to serve everyone who is eligible, or do we have a waiting list?
Right, there's always a waiting list.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And how long, or do you have an estimate?
So I can answer. So we have funding for the first quarter of the federal fiscal year. So I guess, I think to answer the question directly, if Congress was to fail to pass a budget at the end of the month, that'd be problematic, and we'll have to kind of have that conversation. So that's why we continue to monitor budget discussions at the federal level.
Okay. Thank you so much for the information and the work.
Sorry, just to clarify, there's always a waiting list, Webster, so how long is that waiting list?
For applicants. So we have 45 days to process an application. So essentially, it will be that long. However, our state processing times per our last JCR submitted, our statewide local administrative agencies are processing within 20 days.
Okay, so those are people just waiting to be onboarded. They're not like on a wait list and like you don't have funding for that.
Correct. They're already applied in the app in our system. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And our basic principle is to, as much as possible, fund every application in some form if they're eligible.
Great.
You know, we're trying to use the funds we've got and spread it around.
Okay. Thank you. I do not see any other questions for this panel, so appreciate you joining us. Haven't seen a lot of you before, so it's nice to have you in here on this topic.
Pleasure.
We will turn it over to the Maryland Energy Administration. Please bring up your team.
You should scooch away from me. Good. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Corman and Vice Chair Guyton. It's a pleasure to see you again, and I appreciate the time to be in front of this committee. My name is Kelly Speaks-Backman. I started a couple of weeks ago here at the Maryland Energy Administration. I'm excited to be here to help us address the very immediate issues of the day around energy. I have a long history of energy experience, including being on the Maryland Public Service Commission, serving from 2011 to 2015, appointed by Governor O'Malley. So I'm very happy to be back here in the state of Maryland and excited to get started. To my left is Eric Kaufman, Division Director for Programs. And to my far left is Ryan Opsahl, MEA's Policy Director. They're going to help me out because I'm like 2 weeks in and I'm trying to get a hold of everything, but I won't know all the details, and so I appreciate these gentlemen being here. MEA's mission is to promote clean, affordable, reliable energy and energy-related greenhouse gas reductions to benefit Marylanders in a just and equitable manner. Now, that's a handful, but basically what we're saying is our job is to balance that. MEA is also an advisor, a policy advisor on energy issues, often representing the state and the governor before the Public Service Commission, PJM, and federal agencies. This extends to this body as well. We truly want to be a resource to you as you weigh your energy issues in this legislative session, and we have the subject matter expertise to do so, I believe. Energy issues, again, they're at front and center of this session. We have a lot of work to do for the people of Maryland, and I view MEA as a strategic policy body. We've engaged in multiple studies to help inform the energy landscape in Maryland. We really want to do a lot more of that coming up. We want to be that partner for you all, not just to state what the problem is in a study, but really bringing the solutions when it comes to future energy questions facing this body. Thank you. The Strategic Energy Investment Fund, or SEIF, as everyone seems to be calling it. MEA is, just to start off, MEA is specially funded through the SEIF to accomplish our goals. We use no general funds in our operations. It's largely comprised, can you turn that on, please? Yes. Largely comprised of revenue from two main sources. That's the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI auctions, and alternative compliance payments, or ACP, from energy companies to comply with Maryland's renewable portfolio standard. We also receive funds via PSE orders, but MEA doesn't expect this source really for the foreseeable future. SEIF itself was created to support the deployment of clean energy and energy efficiency efforts in the state to help reduce utility bills now and in the future. 50% of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative auction revenues within the SEIF go directly to low-income utility bill payment assistance, making this an essential resource for Maryland's most vulnerable, especially when we're facing extreme cold and spikes in energy bills like we expect to see this week. Typically, MEA's efforts are also supplemented by federal funds. However, as you are aware, the Trump administration has delayed or canceled funding for many clean energy projects, in addition to their outright hostility toward renewable energy, and especially offshore wind. I'll be really frank with you all, this is going to hinder Maryland from reaching some of our energy and environmental goals. But we're here to try to figure out how to offset that as best we can within the confines that we have of our budget. While MEA received conditional approval, this is just an example, for the launch of the U.S. Department of Energy's residential energy rebate programs, no progress has been made since, and we're still waiting on the Department of Energy to move forward with these essential programs. This is about $137 million being withheld. Maryland is also losing out on about $62 million in Solar for All funds that were slated to go to Maryland Clean Energy Center. The program would have provided rebates and financing for rooftop solar on single-family homes, multi-family housing, and community solar projects. It would have allowed Maryland residents to reduce their energy costs through solar power. So again, it's been quite a balance on the team, kind of stressful time for the team to really be able to figure out how we're gonna bridge that gap. By reducing the build out of new clean power capacity and by increasing reliance on our fossil fuels, the Trump administration, frankly, is driving up wholesale and retail electricity prices. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail in another slide, but there was a study from the Center for American Progress that estimated that repealing the Inflation Reduction Act incentives in the One Big Beautiful Bill, it will increase cumulative household energy costs by $32 billion from 2025 to 2035, and will cause the loss of more than 700,000 jobs across the country. The CEF is not an unlimited source. MEA really believes strongly that it should be utilized for its intended purposes, but we are trying to be as creative as we can with these CEF funds to make sure that we're using it for its intent, but meeting the moment of addressing high costs for consumers coming up. Next slide. I'll go a little faster so we can get into conversation if you like. The renewable portfolio standard for the state of Maryland, it's as you can see from the table here, it's falling short on its clean energy goals. Specifically looking at solar there, we're about 20% behind when it comes to solar deployment in the state. This is especially important as the solar carve-out typically only applies to in-state generation. So that's in-state generation that is we're falling behind on our goals for. We need to step up our efforts, frankly, to drive investment in clean energy development in this state, and specifically address solar development in the face of the loss of the federal ITC or investment tax credit. You can also see that there's a shortfall in Tier 1 renewable energy credits or RECs, and this is because Maryland's alternative compliance payment or ACP schedule is really low. It's cheaper for electric suppliers to just pay this ACP than to purchase the RECs as the RPS was originally designed. So that's an area that we want to start focusing on. Okay, go to the next. Some of the things we're doing. On December 19th of last year, Governor Moore signed the executive order titled Building an Affordable and Reliable Energy Future. I had the privilege of being there, although I wasn't an employee of the state yet. I got a little preview. This executive order is a whole government approach to addressing some of the energy issues that we're attacking. It created an energy sub-cabinet that will coordinate interagency policy. You've heard quite a bit about energy policies and energy programs across the various agencies. We're looking to see how we can make sure that we're best coordinated and more efficiently and effectively administer those programs. We're also looking for interagency coordination to oversee the implementation of the rest of the executive order. It also creates an energy advisory council to provide external stakeholder input into that sub-cabinet work. The order directly addresses affordability. It requires the commission, the Public Service Commission, to review budget billing to help households manage utility costs and brace for high billing periods like we're about to face with this cold weather snap that we're seeing. I can't get over the cold outside. It's just freezing. We will also be, as part of the executive order, be commissioning petitioning the commission to look at lower cost grid solutions like non-wires alternatives and other less capital intense improvements than just putting new transmission in solely. We're going to be pushing for the adoption of grid enhancing technologies before the Public Service Commission. They can help us maximize the efficacy of existing infrastructure. Just like it's the cheapest thing to make your homes more efficient, it is the cheapest thing to make our transmission and distribution lines more efficient. And so we're going to be pushing on that with the Public Service Commission. Ultimately, hoping that this leads to lower costs over time for ratepayers. And lastly, we're going to be working with the Department of Human Services to examine the state's energy assistance programs, as you just heard in the previous panel. Go ahead. Thank you. So what's driving up increased utility rates? I just want to be really, really clear that, I'm going to go to that second bullet there, what the bill is made of. The electricity bill is made up of three major components. One is the cost of generating energy. The two is the cost of delivering energy. And three is the cost of profit or the rate of return for the utilities. It's the energy delivery cost, that third part, transmission and distribution, that's been increasing disproportionately of late. This is driven, we think, by questionable utility capital investments, as well as the cost of procuring energy through PJM. PJM is the regional transmission organization, as referenced yesterday in your discussion with the Public Service Commission. So our challenges with PJM are not insignificant. Their job is to coordinate the generation and transmission of electricity across all or part of 13 states, plus the District of Columbia. They are supposed to manage the regional markets to ensure that lights stay on in a reliable fashion. There are serious concerns about the structure and the governance of these markets, as well as what PJM is doing or is not doing to get new generation online to serve increasing demand that is coming within the electricity markets in the PJM footprint. So what's their role in these increased costs? Well, for one, the PJM queue for new generation in the state has been pretty much closed. It's been choking off clean energy development. Clean energy, especially solar and battery storage, dominate the list of projects that are waiting in that queue, that line to get in, to come online. And these projects are, frankly, today, the lowest cost option to bringing on more generation in the state. Their delays have directly led to increased capacity market prices within PJM, which is why Governor Moore joined with other PJM states in calling for serious reforms, rather than a business-as-usual approach. This included supporting the Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's complaint before the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that called for modification of the capacity market price cap. And just last year, Governor Moore penned a letter to PJM urging them to make further adjustments to the capacity market rules in order to contain the escalation of capacity costs to the greatest extent possible. Now, that might sound a little bit wonky, but when we talk about transmission being at the wholesale level, that moves into the retail level, which is the jurisdiction of our Public Service Commission. And so we don't have control over that. What we can do is try to influence it. And by bringing the 13 states together, we think we have a larger voice in order to influence what PJM is doing. And last week, Governor Moore joined a bipartisan coalition of governors with the White House even, to sign a statement of principles calling for for more urgent reforms to the PJM interconnection market. The agreement or the petition that was signed by fellow PJM governors outlines a coordinated strategy to incentivize new power generation, to provide protect residential customers from price increases, and ensure that data centers pay their fair share of the costs of generation investments that they're driving. MEA will work to continue with fellow PJM states and the governor's offices to drive these reforms at PJM to deliver rate relief for Maryland residents. Now, what are we doing at MEA to tackle some of these cost increases? We have once again taken an active role in utility rate cases, opposing unnecessary spending, and working to limit utility recovery and returns to its state shareholders where we find that it's not fair. It marks a significant change in policy as MEA, before this Moore administration, really did not get themselves involved in rate cases. MEA is currently actively involved in 2 rate cases right now, with more anticipated in the calendar year. We also operate a number of energy grant programs that I'm sure you're familiar with to bring relief to Marylanders. We operate the Residential Energy Equity Grant Program. We also bring renewable energy to low and moderate income individuals through the Maryland Solar Access Program. We have a community solar program that maximizes value to low and moderate income subscribers. And we operate several other programs that Eric can, he's giving me a crash course, but Eric can explain that really are focused on bringing resilience, clean energy, and affordability to Marylanders. How do we promote clean energy using the CEF? We operate a large number of energy-related grants and rebates programs that promote the development of clean and renewable energy, including rooftop and community solar, deep energy efficiency retrofits, and resilience measures like microgrids and energy storage systems. And just as a last bit, I would love to just go through a few of our success stories. Can you? Thank you. We have a renewable energy program. For more than 5 years, this program's been run. We've given about $70 million to improve energy efficiency to low and moderate income homes and community service buildings. And that's we've provided more than $4.4 million in annual savings to these programs. On community solar, we have a low and moderate income PPA program where we've issued more than 120 grants, resulting in $50 million of awards to community solar subscriber organizations to offset these costs associated with a power purchase agreement, or PPA, as lots of folks call it, enabling clean energy to be offered to low-income households at a lower cost. And this program has made 183 megawatts of solar available to low and moderate income Marylanders. It supports greenhouse gas reduction by removing 80,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide every year. And we've seen approximately $183 million in total utility bill savings for up to 24,000 low and moderate income subscribers over the past 20 years. And so with that, you're welcome to take a little picture of that, but I thank you for your time and your attention, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you so much, Director Button. It's nice to see you again.
Great to see you.
Appreciate the success stories. In the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and continue with the presenters and then come back to the committee for questions.
No, that's it. I did it, and let's open it up.
All right, then I think for the good of the order, we'll start with Subcommittee Chair Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Thank you. It's good to see you. It's good to see the team. I know it's a different room, but it's very, very exciting. It's a very exciting room over here in ENT. I'm very happy to be back. So I'm just going to throw out a couple of, a few questions, and if we can kind of go through them, and maybe we circle back. Some of them might be kind of complicated.
Great.
So what is the current state of offshore wind? I know it's on hold, but the question is, what do we look like? Should we come back to that another time?
I'm not sure, like specifically for Maryland or offshore wind writ large?
Well, both.
Yeah.
I mean, Maryland, we were depending on some electrification coming online, and now we're not going to get that. So what I'm trying to get at, how far off that may be, what our options are, and how that impacts the queue. Because my next question was going to be, with all of the stuff that's backlogged in the queue, when all that hopefully at some point comes online, what do we look like when that starts to right itself? And I know that queue has been delayed by somewhere around 5 years.
Yes.
So I'm trying to get a picture for the committee, like, okay, with just those two things alone negatively impacting the queue, not even considering data centers. That's a couple of questions down.
Let's assume flat supply or some flat demand, which it's not. So I will speak a little bit, because my most recent position that I came from was as a private developer with a company called Invenergy. And I don't want to speak on their behalf in any way, but I can tell you we had 4 offshore wind leases. And so this is very close to my experience. We are looking at massive delays for offshore wind to come to our aid in terms of a supply resource. And we're looking at, I think, 5 to 10 years if we can realize this at all. And I hate to be negative here.
And that's because there's a bunch of sunk costs already, and at some point, developers are gonna ask how many more millions of dollars are we gonna sink into something that may or may not go forward.
There will be a legal battle at least for the next 3 years, I would assume, as long as this federal administration is in place and illegally stopping construction that is underway. That will be a battle. And so as this uncertainty unfolds, private companies are reticent to invest anything further. I believe I came to a committee hearing when I was with Invenergy to talk about that a little bit. Specific to Maryland, we're going to power on. We're going to continue to try to do what we can to do the work that does not involve the federal government and get ourselves, let's say, offshore wind ready. And I'll turn it to my colleagues here to talk about the specifics of what we're doing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think just to add to what Director Speaks-Bachman said, I think, right, uncertainty is the order of the day with this. We have essentially 3 projects that are sort of waiting and effectively in limbo. And they were set to bring on a very, very substantial amount of supply to the Delmarva Peninsula and to Maryland. And frankly, that is going to hurt the ability, especially to suppress costs in that area and to provide the additional supply that is actually needed in the region and for Maryland. So that is sort of the state of play. We're waiting to see what happens. Uncertainty, obviously, at the federal level creates a major problem, a major obstacle to moving these projects forward. And I think also you did mention a question about the PJM interconnection queue. That is set to unlock really a deluge of many tens of hundreds of gigawatts worth of generation into the system. I'm sorry, not hundreds, tens of gigawatts into the system, I would say. So there's a large amount that is stuck in that queue. Historically, when projects go through the PJM interconnection queue, roughly 10 to 20% of them actually come to fruition and are actually built. I would suggest, because sometimes the extended wait period in the queue can create issues for financing. Money can only be locked up for so long. If it's locked up too long because a project is stuck in the queue for several years, it creates a problem. So I think it's a bit unknown at this point exactly what's going to make it through the queue, but it is enough to make an impact for long-term reliability and cost suppression throughout the PJM region.
And just to add to that, so as we are waiting, not waiting, but as we are experiencing the delays for offshore wind, we've really got to unlock what's happening at PJM and get them moving on approving generation.
Okay, and so when we think about that, when we think about generation as a whole, all that's in the queue plus wind, what is immediately deployable? I mean, my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that generally speaking, without recycling an old turbine, that turbines have a 5 to 6 year wait list. So gas is potentially 5 to 6 years away from the get-go.
I would agree with that 100% as a former developer. They're 5 years away and 4 to 5 times the cost that they were 3 years ago. And
nuclear, in the best case scenario, all permitting run congruently, is 9 to 11 or 12 years away.
Yeah, that's the right ballpark.
Okay, so the next question that I have is that yesterday there was a discrepancy between OPC and the PSC as to where we actually are as far as generation crunch is concerned. And I think OPC kind of had was making the case that we're not in as much of a impending crunch, and I don't know that the Public Service Commission completely agreed with that. Would you care to opine on where are we in the next 5 years? Because we're getting slightly different information, and I'm sure all that information is for good cause from different perspectives. But as as legislators here, is we try to look like, what do we need to do to bring rates down, given the limitations of what's available? Because from what I'm hearing, the only thing that's available that's dispatchable immediately, quite frankly, is solar, whether that's rooftop solar, which can be dispatched in 4 to 6 months, or grid scale solar, which is, I don't know, a couple of years.
If they can get it connected through PJM. Sorry to be
If the big,
broken
right, the
record
big projects, they can get connected through PJM.
I would love to opine on this, but I won't go too long. I would say that one of the common themes that I have seen, not just in Maryland, but everywhere, when people say we don't have enough power, oh, we have enough power, you have to put it in the time frames. You have to look at short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And I am someone who strongly believes in an all-of-the-above strategy, but you've got to figure out what you can do right now, because data centers are coming. Whether or not they come to Maryland, I would like to see them coming to Maryland if we're protecting ratepayers because of the revenues that they can provide the state. But demand is increasing dramatically, and supply is not. And so we are in a crunch where we need an immediate relief with more generation online. And if we have solar rooftop, at the rooftop, that's a distribution level connection, and we can get that done a little bit faster. Then we have the medium term, where we'd say like maybe in the 5 to 10 year outline. That is terrific for when GE and others get moving on producing and manufacturing more gas turbines. But frankly, if you can't get them secondhand, you're going to be paying 4 times more and not get them like for 4 or 5 years. And then we have a long-term strategy, which we have to work on all 3 of these at the same time. But the long-term strategy for technologies such as nuclear or fusion or geothermal, which still has to be developed, and I'm not sure that it's right for this particular region, like I'm talking about the enhanced geothermal systems. I mean, that's a longer term, and yes, we have to continue to work on it, but it's not going to help us today. And I would say even more immediate than more generation is we've got to unlock PJM to get them to approve the projects that are shovel-ready, and we've got to work on energy efficiency in our state to help folks control their own bills and to control their own use a little bit more. And that includes demand response. And those
Virtual
things,
power plants.
you can do it super cheap and super fast.
Okay,
Sorry.
so I would say we are going to depend on you all as experts to help figure out how to guide through some of the SREC stuff you were talking about, the alternative compliance payments, the undervaluing of all of those. And the last question that I would have, you know what, I'll just leave it there. I don't want to take up all the time.
Nothing would make me happier than to help advise you all on how to work.
Yeah,
through
it's
these
complicated, right?
It's so complicated.
Madam Director, it's very complicated, and there's a lot of moving pieces, and like you said, those moving pieces also in conjunction with time, where we are in time, makes it even more complicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we passed a law last year that would have hopefully dealt to some degree with those questionable utility capital projects you were talking about. Do you have any sense at all, and maybe for the other people on the panel who have been here for longer, is that working to any extent?
I'll turn this over to you, Ryan.
I think the issue with that is I think it's moving in the right direction. But there are, of course, long sort of lead times that you need with this stuff. So, I mean, the utility rates and the rates that we're seeing now outright are reflective, for instance, of rate cases that occurred in 2023 and 2024. So it's going to take time, essentially, to move those through the system and hopefully get the remuneration for the utilities in I think in a better spot that we would like.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Nawrocki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Director, it's good to meet you and your team. Thank you for being here. I have a question that's been kind of swirling around in my head for a couple days and trying to immerse myself in these issues. And one of the points of the presentation, you touched on RGGI. And I do have a question about that. So in November, Pennsylvania voted in a very large very bipartisan way in the House and the Senate, and the governor signed a repeal bill to remove Pennsylvania from RGGI. One of the reasons it's often cited, not only in the media, but I've had an opportunity to become friends with some of the legislators there in Pennsylvania, is the costs of being involved in RGGI. It has put an undue burden on the ratepayers there in Pennsylvania. If that logic holds true in Pennsylvania, why is that somehow different here in Maryland? There aren't artificial costs being passed on to our ratepayers because of the involvement in RGGI with this state.
I very much appreciate that question. RGGI is, it will depend on each state and what they do with those revenues that come in through the auction as to whether it is successful for their state. I am not familiar right now as to what Pennsylvania is doing with their money, but I can tell you overall for the RGGI states, there is a return on investment. I think I'm going to look up this number. There was a study done in 2023 by the analysis group of the spending from 2018 to 2020 that showed a net economic value across the states of $15 added to each Marylander's wallet. So it is a net positive. RGGI is a successful regional cap and trade program for those of you who are not as familiar with that, where half of the program goes to energy assistance, and the other half is invested into energy efficiency and clean energy projects. There was a statistic back when I was in Maryland in 2010 where for every dollar invested, Maryland got $7 back specifically. Now, I've just asked the team like yesterday, because I'm 2 weeks in, to find out what that updated number is, and I would love to report that out to you. But it really depends on what you do with the funds and the proceeds and whether you invest them into savings for Marylanders or you just simply give them back for a 1-to-1 ratio, which I suspect much of Pennsylvania's money was going for. So it's not really, we have to look at the programs, if that answers your question.
Madam Chair, may I have one more?
Certainly, Delegate.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So kind of going down that same thought process, this is sort of a second part to that. So one of the other reasons that they cite withdrawing from RGGI is an inability to create new generation facilities. They will tell you that they have a very hard time, or at least with their membership in RGGI, they had a very hard time bringing on new generation facilities. Again, if that logic holds true in Pennsylvania, why would that not be the case here? How would we somehow be different that being a part of RGGI would somehow make it easier for us to create new generation facilities here in this state? Because as we are well aware, we have a big problem in terms of having to import lots of power from other places. I think that puts us in a very vulnerable position. There's a movement in Pennsylvania right now also to potentially withdraw them from PJM, and I think that's a very serious movement, and that puts us in a very, very difficult position if that does occur. So again, how does our involvement in RGGI help us to bring new generation online here in the state of Maryland?
Well, I would say that the RGGI proceeds spent through that go through the CEF funds that help offset the costs of solar, for example, are helping to get generation going. I would also say that I am not sure when you look at the cost structure of developers and generators that in this region, that RGGI is the full problem for why they're not generating. I mean, there are a lot of other issues, including the costs of transmission and wholesale prices that are much more influential than the RGGI costs.
Thank you, and I look forward to continue these conversations.
Me too.
Thank you. Delegate Stein.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Director, good to see you. Thanks for your presentation, and thanks for all the good work that your agency does. My question is about the PJM, and you referred to the fact that MEA is recommending changes in some of their policies and how the governor joined other governors and legislators from Maryland and other states have been imploring PJM to change some of their practices. I guess most recently it was about how they treat data centers, and the PJM's response was lukewarm at best. I guess my question is, who has oversight over PJM? Is it FERC? If we, I realize we're trying through advocacy, and and through the PJM's current governance structure to get them to change their ways. But otherwise, is it FERC or some other federal agency that has ultimate jurisdiction over them?
Yes, it is FERC. Do you want to take some of this question because you recently had a meeting at FERC, and this is why our engagement at a regional level and a federal level is important to the specific costs of Marylanders. PJM is responsible to FERC. Their processes for complaints by stakeholders, whether they be generators or transmission owners or states such as ours, is rather slow. I mean, imagine a regulatory process at the federal level. It's not lickety split for sure. But it is the way that we can get PJM to act responsibly. And so do you want to speak to the meetings you've had recently?
Yes, certainly. So I think FERC, this FERC in particular, I think they are certainly, more open to listening to the states, seem to have somewhat more of a, let's say, more of a federalist type of stance. And I think that we are optimistic too, especially that if we stick together with other states in PJM, and I think that's the key part. This is a regional organization. It's obviously a bipartisan collection of states. I think moving together as a group on a single message is incredibly important. We've been able to do that more and more, especially as more states have come to realize what an issue PJM is and what an impact it has on the costs of everyone's households and all of our respective states. PJM covers about 67 million people right now. It's a lot of people and obviously a lot of voters that people are very, very concerned about. So I think coming together on that, we have a real opportunity to continue to move forward. We've really been focusing, laser focused on things like price cap in the capacity market. You mentioned data centers. I can't underscore how incredibly important that is, and Director Speaks-Bachman mentioned that earlier, right? Those data centers, that load goes into the forecast in the capacity market, and we're paying for that. We're paying for it now, and our constituents are paying for that now. And so that's something that really has to be confronted, now, not later, because we're paying for it. And obviously the interconnection queue. So sticking together as a group, with a bipartisan group working together to try and I won't say compel, but to try and get PJM to move in the right direction. And if that means working through the existing process at PJM or operating through FERC to try and get some action, then we will do that as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Do you have another question, Delegate?
Sure, that's okay.
I thought you might.
So I guess a couple of follow-up questions. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to depend on you for a lot of this. We've been pushing the PJM pretty hard for the last couple of years. What do you, in your view, has worked, what hasn't worked, and what recommendations do you have for helping to unlock that queue a little bit? The sooner we unlock that queue, the sooner we diversify our energy generation and storage, the better off we're going to be as a state.
I think one step that could and may seem to be helping is creating partnerships across parties. The bipartisanship of the petition that was filed on Friday is not unnoticed by folks in Washington, D.C. The fact that we have a coalition of states of PJM, state governors of PJM, that is co-chaired by Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Indiana is starting to resonate with folks. And the fact that we are meeting with both Democrats and Republicans at FERC to try to make sure that the issues of the day are addressed in a similar manner. I mean, we got agreement with the White House on what should be done. And that's a little surprising for some. But it was because we put principles first instead of politics. And I think that's what's going to save the day. And I think making sure that we have the right partners around the table and are speaking in group, that's the only thing that's going to move FERC, because nothing has moved, or sorry, at PJM, because nothing's, yeah, you're right, nothing's really moved them thus far.
Okay. And lastly, a question was asked yesterday and then followed up a little bit today about membership in the PJM. And so the question was asked, what do you think would happen if somehow Maryland and or in this case Pennsylvania that was asked earlier were to remove themselves from the PJM? What would that result be? Let's say Maryland decided they didn't want to be in the PJM and removed itself from the PJM. I'm sorry, the PJM, what would that look like? There were a couple of answers yesterday, and I'm just curious as to what your answer would be.
I can't say exactly what would happen, but I can say that before making such a decision, we would have to look at what is the capacity for generation on our own, and are we talking about removing ourselves from PJM as a whole, or just certain markets, like the capacity market? And then we'd have to do an analysis of like what the impact on prices would be, because we would have to get our capacity and our, the reliability of our system just on our own, surrounded by all the other PJM states. I think there are some risks there that we would need to analyze before making a recommendation that we do so one way or the other.
So for the state of Maryland, if you look at everything that we have deployed currently, what percentage of electrons of electricity do we produce in the state of Maryland that covers Maryland?
Well, 10 years ago, I think it was 30.
It's about 35 to 40%.
That's Calvert Cliffs, the 7.5% solar.
Yes.
Conowingo.
Gas, coal, Conowingo.
So what number is that?
I'm sorry?
What did you say, about 40?
Yeah, 35 to 40% roughly.
10 years
Yep.
ago was about 30, so
Yep.
that makes sense that it would be 35 to 40%.
Okay.
That means we import the rest from
So we
those
import
PJM
between
states.
60 and 70%.
Correct.
Okay. So if we decoupled from PJM tomorrow, there wouldn't be any lights in this room? There'd be a 60% chance we wouldn't have lights in this room.
So
I just want to make sure everybody's
not-
clear as to what would happen.
Go ahead.
I would say it wouldn't really be possible on a unilateral basis, right, because of that. And what we would ultimately then do is you would start initiating a process of RFPs and bilateral contracts between our utilities as offtakes and generators elsewhere across the border. What those prices would look like, I cannot say. I doubt in a higher price environment they would be particularly favorable, but that is a guess. But that is what you would have to do if you wanted to keep the lights on, yeah.
So it would be fair to say it would be pretty jolting and potentially catastrophic for the state of Maryland if it were to remove itself tomorrow from PJM.
It would definitely be impactful. I can't say catastrophic, because we could do those power purchase agreements, but then again, power purchase agreements also go on the books of utilities, which increases the prices for them. And so it could be catastrophic for our
Ratepayers. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I do have one question before we go to Delegate Ziegler and then Delegate Morgan. There's been a lot of talk here today and in the news about the problems associated with so much importation of electric generation. Is it always better for ratepayers to generate in-state?
There's not anything that is always when it comes to the energy market. I would say absolutely not. It is not always best to generate in-state. I would say then you have to look at the sufficiency and the efficiency of the transmission system and the distribution system and how that might pull in power at a more efficient rate to keep rates lower.
Okay, thank you very much. Delegate Ziegler.
Madam Chair. So we've been told that the capacity auction price is based on projected demand, not actual demand. Is there any mechanism in that auction for a look back so we're paying for something that isn't actually happening? Is there any way to ratchet that back down, or is that a number that just keeps going up as we project more and more data centers that may or may not come to Maryland?
So that's a good question, Delegate. So, the capacity market auction is meant to be a forward-looking price signal. Basically, if the prices go up, it's supposed to be telling the market, hey, generator company, come and build in PJM. Prices are high. It's signaling low supply. In that sense, it's kind of doing what it's supposed to be doing to an extent, right? The issue here, as you rightly pointed out, is data centers. Again, these are 3 years forward, so it's basically going to be looking at what's the load going to be looking like here in 3 years' time. You're also right to point out that I think one of the biggest issues that we've had with data center load is that we have a lot of concerns that some of it is going to be phantom load, companies sort of gaming the system, trying to figure out where they want to put their data center, where it's going to be the most competitive and business effective. Those are all problems. Unfortunately, in terms of looking back at a capacity market and essentially changing the costs and the prices, we have not seen that occur. And I think the last time that was challenged, it was basically stamped down by FERC. Essentially, when a price comes out, that's it. It's still a competitive market. They don't want to go back and change it if at all possible. I'm not sure if that has actually happened. I could be wrong, but I don't think it has happened in the history of PJM.
I think that's right. They have not. But what we did ask in our petition on Friday, along with the other states, was for them to at least get a little better at their projections. Yes. At least get your math right up front, and then we can maybe do. We didn't ask for a look back, but it's a really interesting question. I suspect you would get quite a bit of pushback from the folks who have invested in generation based on those projections, and so they've done their economics in that way. But at the very least, PJM should do a better job of being accurate in their projections so that we're not overpaying and then stuck with that.
It seems to me like it works like the equities market, which is fine, except that what they're selling is something that literally everybody has to buy. So, from a ratepayer's perspective, it just seems really perverse. Thank you.
Isn't that so?
Isn't that so?
Delia Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you guys have any idea about how much it costs per megawatt hour for RGGI?
Off the top of my head, per megawatt hour, no, I do not.
Okay, then it gets charged back somehow to the consumer, correct?
Correct.
So that would add to the cost of electricity that they're receiving?
Yes.
Okay. If you could find out that idea, that'd be good.
We'll get back.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So one last question here, unless I see any other lights to bring us home. So with the PJM queue that we've already discussed, are there any projects that Maryland can build out at scale that will avoid this queue, or are we stuck where we are until they get their process a little bit more efficient?
I wouldn't say that we're stuck where we are. I would say that we can, at the distribution level, connect generation through the Public Service Commission, who has jurisdiction over the distribution system. I would say also energy efficiency is a great way to help us to suppress costs, both individually and in the congestion that could be, for example, in Baltimore City. If we could get a really deep energy efficiency across some of the homes there, then you've got a cluster of energy use that can be brought down, and therefore the congestion prices go down. So I don't think that we are all lost until PJM acts, but it is a huge element of what we need to be addressing, which is why I want to make sure that our policy expertise, we expand that here at MEA to help guide you all and guide the governor's office and other stakeholders to really help advise you.
All right, well, I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for your partnership. And I know we are happy to know that the Maryland Energy Administration is powering on, as is the ENT Committee. So we are adjourned for today.